He didn't knock. He didn't schedule a meeting. Oba Femi walked into Triple H's office with The Undertaker standing behind him and told the chief content officer exactly what was going to happen at SummerSlam. And the room went very, very quiet. Welcome back to Wrestling Stands, the channel that finds the backstage moments that change everything. I'm your host, and tonight we are covering what may be the single most dramatic pre-show backstage development of 2026. Because before Monday Night Raw went live, before a single entrance theme played or a single bell rang, the locker room had already been silenced by something it did not expect. Oba Femi, Nigerian giant, world heavyweight champion, the man who has ended Brock Lesnar's comeback narrative twice and still does not consider the job finished, walked through the backstage corridors of that arena with The Undertaker alongside him, pushed open Triple H's office door, looked the chief content officer dead in the eye, and demanded a Hell in a Cell match against Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. Not requested, not suggested, demanded, with the dead man standing in the corner, and a vow that a standard match would not be enough. That what Oba Femi wants in Minneapolis is not a victory, it is a breaking. This is the full breakdown. And it is extraordinary. Quick favor before we get into it, if you enjoy this kind of content, please smash that like button and hit subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. It's totally free for you, but it means the world to us and helps the channel grow. Already subscribed? You're absolutely brilliant, thank you. Alright, let's get into the video. Let's start with the atmosphere, because the backstage environment before Monday Night Raw went live is not typically a place of dramatic silences and locker room-wide tension. It is a busy, professional, logistically complex space where hundreds of people are doing their jobs simultaneously. Production crews, talent preparing, agents briefing, the controlled, purposeful noise of a major live television operation in its final pre-broadcast hours. And then it went quiet. Suddenly. The specific quality of sudden silence that only happens when something significant enough has occurred nearby that everyone in the vicinity registers it simultaneously and instinctively pauses to process. The kind of silence that veterans of the backstage environment know has a specific cause, not an accident, not a technical failure, but the presence of something or someone that commands that response automatically. That presence was Oba Femi and The Undertaker walking through the corridor toward Triple H's office, together, side by side. And if you can picture that image for a moment, the Nigerian giant, 26 years old, the most physically imposing active performer in WWE, and the dead man, the most legendary presence in the history of professional wrestling, sharing the same corridor with the same destination, you begin to understand why the silence fell the way it did. These are not two people you look away from when they are moving with purpose. These are two people that the entire backstage area stopped to acknowledge, wordlessly and instinctively, as they passed. Before we get into the office itself, we need to properly address The Undertaker's involvement because his presence in this moment is not decorative. It is not a cameo or a nostalgia appearance. It is loaded with specific, documented, emotionally significant history that makes his decision to stand in Oba Femi's corner for this particular confrontation one of the most meaningful things the dead man has done in his post-career relationship with WWE. Brock Lesnar ended The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak, the 6th of April 2014. WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. The Undertaker went 21-0 at WrestleMania over a career spanning more than 2 decades, and the one man who ended that streak was Brock Lesnar. The arena fell silent in a way that those who were present still describe as unlike anything they had experienced at a professional wrestling event before or since. The streak was not just a record, it was the most sacred statistic in the history of the business, and Lesnar destroyed it. Cleanly, definitively, with the kind of finality that does not allow for revision or asterisk. The Undertaker has never been entirely comfortable with that outcome, and this is not a secret. In interviews, in public appearances, in the various ways that a man of his stature communicates his honest assessments of his own career, the loss to Lesnar at WrestleMania 30 has occupied a specific, unresolved space. Not regret exactly, The Undertaker is too dignified and too self-aware for simple regret. But an awareness that the chapter closed in a way that the dead man himself would have written differently. He cannot reopen that chapter. His career is finished. The ring is behind him. But Oba Femi, who has already beaten Brock Lesnar once, at WrestleMania 42, in front of a full arena, represents something that The Undertaker cannot be but can support. A man who is willing to go further than just beating Lesnar. Who wants to break him. Who understands, in some way that the dead man recognizes as genuine rather than promotional, that Brock Lesnar has never truly been made to pay a cost commensurate with what he has taken from the people he has defeated. The Undertaker is not passing a torch of legacy to Oba Femi. He is passing something older and more specific than that. He is passing a torch of vengeance. And the weight of that torch, the weight of WrestleMania 30, of 21-0 becoming 21-1, of the streak, is part of what Femi carried into Triple H's office. Now, the office itself. Triple H, as Chief Content Officer, is the person whose desk sits at the intersection of creative vision and business reality in WWE. He is the man you go to when you have a demand that cannot be processed through the usual channels of agent briefings and match request procedures. And Oba Femi, who is the World Heavyweight Champion and who has been building toward this specific confrontation for months through stare-downs and security interventions and a loading bay brawl in Italy that hospitalized a guard and locked down a city block. Oba Femi was not in a standard match request mood. He was not there to suggest. He was there to inform. He looked Triple H in the eye. He stated his demand. A Hell in a Cell match against Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. Not a standard singles match. Not a last man standing or a falls count anywhere or any of the other stipulations that exist within the traditional match menu. Hell in a Cell specifically, the structure that exists precisely for situations where the hatred between two performers has grown to the point where a standard match feels insufficient, where the audience and the competitors and the creative team all sense that something needs to be contained, physically and literally, in a way that only 16 feet of steel mesh can provide. His reasoning, according to those present, was direct and unambiguous. A standard match has edges. It has count-outs and disqualifications and the possibility of someone escaping the consequences when the consequences become too severe. Oba Femi does not want Brock Lesnar to have edges. He does not want Brock to be able to escape or be rescued or have anything that functions as a release valve for what is coming. He wants a structure where the only way out is through him. Where Brock Lesnar has to face everything Femi is bringing, all of it, every pound and every grievance and every piece of the Undertaker's streak that sits in Femi's peripheral vision every time he looks at Lesnar, with nowhere to go and nobody who can stop it. He does not want to beat Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. He wants to break him. That distinction, beat versus break, is the most important two words in this entire story, and it is the distinction that tells you Oba Femi is operating in a register of competitive motivation that goes beyond championship defense or career milestone. This is personal, this is philosophical, this is a 26-year-old champion who has decided that the most significant thing he can do at the biggest summer event in professional wrestling is not retain his title or have a 5-star match. It is to end the chapter of Brock Lesnar's comeback so definitively, so completely, in a structure so unforgiving, that the comeback can never be considered unfinished again. The Undertaker standing in the corner of the office while all of this was delivered added something to the room that no amount of promo preparation or backstage positioning could have replicated. Because the dead man's presence was its own argument, a physical manifestation of the stakes, a visible reminder of what Brock Lesnar's history of destruction has produced, a man whose career was the most decorated in WWE history standing silently beside a young champion and letting that silence say, "This is the one. This is the man who should finish what I could not." Those present in and adjacent to Triple H's office have described the atmosphere as the kind that does not exist in many professional wrestling situations outside of the very biggest moments. The specific charge of a room where something genuinely significant is being decided rather than performed, where the outcome of the conversation will actually matter to the shape of the product going forward. Triple H, by all accounts, listened. He asked no questions during Femi's demand. He waited until Femi had finished, until the Undertaker's presence had settled like weather into the room, and then he said what executives say when a demand is legitimate but requires institutional processing. He would think about it over the weekend. That response, deliberate, non-committal, neither a yes nor a no, is itself a form of answer when you read it correctly. Triple H does not tell people he will think about something when the answer is no. When the answer is no, WWE executives have other ways of communicating it. He will think about it means, this is being seriously considered. The match is possible. The stipulation is being evaluated. The Undertaker's presence was not wasted. And then Brock Lesnar arrived at the arena. Later in the evening, separate from the office confrontation, someone on the production side, presumably with considerably more bravery than common sense, found him and asked about Oba Femi's Hell in a Cell demand. And Brock Lesnar smiled, not a nervous smile, not a dismissive smirk, not the laugh of a man who has heard something ridiculous and cannot take it seriously, the particular, slow, loaded smile of a man who has just been told something that he finds deeply satisfying. The smile of someone who has been waiting for an invitation and has just received it in a form more comprehensive and more personal than he dared expect. Brock Lesnar smiling at the Hell in a Cell demand is not the response of a man who is concerned about Hell in a Cell. Brock Lesnar has been in Hell in a Cell. Brock Lesnar has been through the kind of physical violence that the structure exists to contain, and emerged from it as the one still standing. The smile is the response of a man who has heard that his opponent wants no escape, no rules, no exits, and who has calculated, based on 20+ years of being the most physically dominant performer in professional wrestling, that removing the exits is not a disadvantage for Brock Lesnar. It is an invitation. He is not afraid of the cell. He has lived in it. And the fact that Oba Femi wants one might be the most welcome news Brock Lesnar has received since his return from retirement. Let's talk about what a Hell in a Cell match between Oba Femi and Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam would actually mean for both men, because beyond the spectacle and the stipulation and the Undertaker involvement, there is a match here that has the potential to be one of the most significant in recent WWE history. For Oba Femi, Hell in a Cell is the ultimate statement. A championship match in the most brutal structure WWE sanctions, against the man who ended The Undertaker's streak, with the dead man himself having conferred a specific kind of blessing on the endeavor. If Femi breaks Brock Lesnar inside that cell in Minneapolis, if he delivers on the promise made in Triple H's office, in front of The Undertaker, in front of the entire backstage locker room that went silent when he walked past, he exits SummerSlam as something beyond a champion. He exits as the man who finished what WrestleMania 30 should have but didn't. He carries the weight of the streak's ending, in some symbolic sense, out of the cell with him. He becomes, in the narrative of this company's history, the one who made Brock Lesnar pay for all of it. For Brock Lesnar, the calculus is different and simultaneously simpler. This is a man who came back from retirement with one specific motivation: to defeat Oba Femi or go down in the attempt. Hell in a Cell is not a complication of that mission. It is a clarification of it. No disqualifications, no countouts, no interference. Just him and Femi and 16 feet of steel mesh in Minneapolis. If Lesnar wins under those conditions, if the Beast Incarnate walks out of Hell in a Cell as the man who ended Oba Femi's World Heavyweight Championship reign in the most unforgiving match WWE offers, his comeback is not just complete. It is legendary. The man who came back from retirement, who lost at WrestleMania and refused to accept it, who followed Femi to Italy and through loading bays and now into Hell itself, and won. Both paths to victory in this match are compelling. Neither outcome is obviously wrong, and that genuine unpredictability, that authentic uncertainty about who walks out of that cell, is the foundation of everything great that professional wrestling can produce. Let's close with where this all sits right now. Triple H is thinking about it, which means Hell in a Cell at SummerSlam is alive. Brock Lesnar is smiling, which means he is already prepared. The Undertaker has put his name and his presence and the full weight of what Brock Lesnar did to his streak behind Oba Femi. Which means this match, when it is made official, will carry layers of meaning that go back more than a decade. And Rhea Ripley, one of the most perceptive performers in the locker room, has apparently been watching Femi's predator-like backstage presence with the specific attention of someone who recognizes a different level of competitor when they see one. Oba Femi walked into Triple H's office and demanded. He did not ask. He demanded. And he had The Undertaker standing in the corner to underline every syllable. That is not the behavior of a champion protecting his title. That is the behavior of a man who has decided that his legacy moment is in front of him and he will not allow logistics or scheduling or institutional process to delay it. SummerSlam in Minneapolis. Hell in a Cell. The Nigerian Giant versus the Beast Incarnate. With the shadow of WrestleMania 30 overhead and The Undertaker watching from wherever legends watch the next generation settle old debts, Triple H said he would think about it. The audience has already made their decision. Make the match. Thank you so much for watching. Wrestling Stands family means everything, as always. We'll see you in the next one.